morning. Good morning. Glad we had nice weather on the way in this morning. We are going to start with a roll call or start with a prayer?
Roll call.
I think the prayer is more important, but if you'd rather do the roll call, let's go ahead.
According to our agenda, it's first. Okay, roll call. Dr. Bofi.
Present.
Dr. Bofi is present. Mr. Davis.
Present.
Mr. Davis is present. Ms. Edmonston.
Present.
Ms. Edmonston is present. Mr. Garvey.
Here.
Mr. Garvey is present. Ms. Holloway. Present. Ms. Holloway is present. Dr. Jones.
Present.
Dr. Jones is present. Ms. Lewis, I'm sorry.
Present.
Ms. Lewis is present. Ms. Orange Jones.
Present.
Ms. Orange Jones is present. Mr. Rock. Mr. Rock is present. Dr. Thomason.
Present.
Dr. Thomason is present. And Ms. Fauché.
Here.
Ms. Fauché is present. You do have a quorum.
Thank you. Now, is it okay if we pray? Okay, we're going to have Stanley Celestine Jr. from the Red River Charter Academy lead us in the prayer. And then we're going to have Jessica Cuvion from the same group lead us in the pledge.
Heavenly Father, we pray that you will give us your gift of knowledge, that we might always make the best decisions for the good of all the school children in Louisiana. We pray that you will give us the wisdom to know and define our tasks, the strength to build and refine our educational goals, and the courage to persevere as necessary. We ask for your direction that we might make unselfish decisions for those we serve. We pray that all who are assembled here have a safe journey home. We thank you for all of your past and future blessings. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. What is our first item?
First item is approval of the agenda.
Can we get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Second by Ms. Bofi. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, do we have any objections to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item.
Next item, approval of the minutes of December 7th, 2016.
Ms. Bofi?
Second.
Ms. Holloway? Any questions or comments on that? Hearing none, any objections to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item.
Next item is election of board officers. Consideration of the election of board officers for 2017.
Do we need a motion to consider that, or do we go straight to asking
I would say nomination.
for nominations? Okay, I think we have a nominate. Let's start with the secretary treasurer position. We have a nomination.
I'd like to
O'Shea?
nominate Jada Lewis for secretary.
Jada Lewis. Okay.
I'll second that.
But we don't need
Nomination and a second. Do we have any other nominations? Hearing none, we'll close the nominations. Do we need to take a vote, or? Acclamation. Okay, by acclamation. Congratulations. The next position would be the vice president's position. Do we have a nomination on that?
I'd like to nominate Holly Bofi.
Holly Bofi?
I'll second.
We have a second on that. Do we have any other nominations? Hearing none, we close the nominations. Acclamation, Ms. Bofi will be our vice president. Moving on to the president position. Do we have any nominations for president?
I'd
I'd
like
like
to
to
nominate. Oh,
Ms. Holloway, Ms. Lewis.
nominating Gary Jones.
Second.
We have nomination and we have a second. Do we have any other nominations? Hearing none, we'll close the nominations, and again, by acclamation. Congratulations. Very good. Do I hand over the, do I run to the door?
Next month, we'll swear in the new officers.
Excellent, excellent. Okay. Next item.
Next item is a report by the State Superintendent of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, I want to bring you up to speed on the latest round of policies that you'll be hearing at subsequent meetings. The going doesn't get any easier for you, so please pay close attention. We have a lot of big decisions coming up. First, there are two sets of standards that are going through the approval process, the development process, and ultimately will be coming to your approval, I believe, in subsequent meetings, perhaps the March meeting, perhaps meetings later in the spring. One will be our science standards, which you set in motion several months back. Committees have been meeting. I believe we will have final updated science standards for the first time in more than a decade on track for you in March. Also, committees are meeting to develop physical education standards, which have needed revision for some time as well. Later today, and Ms. Voce is part of this, and it's chaired by Mr. Davis, is the MFP task force. They will be considering what that task force's recommendations will be for the minimum foundation program for this year. Subsequent to that, the governor will release his executive budget in February, and that will certainly have a consideration of the formula in it. And then finally, you will adopt a formula at the March meeting. You don't have to, at that meeting, accept the recommendations of the task force, nor do you have to conform to the governor's budget, but certainly it would be ideal were those three entities to be in sync prior to presenting something to the legislature. So please, I will keep you up to date on the status of all of those, but you should expect for some form of a recommendation to be identified, at least, in today's MFP task force meeting. Finally, the Accountability Commission continues to meet, and other groups that you have appointed to advise you on different issues, superintendents, advisory council, the special education advisory panel, and much of the policy they're considering relates to the Every Student Succeeds Act and the state's move to issue its plan. The state plans to submit a plan to the federal government this spring so that a plan can be approved prior to the law's first year of implementation, 2017-18. We don't want a set of policies being dropped on our teachers and students in the middle of the year. We anticipate bringing to you a plan, therefore, this spring, and there will be policy decisions made by you, perhaps policy decisions made by the legislature over the course of the winter and spring as well. Ultimately, all of those things have to line up prior to the federal government approving of that plan, but you should generally anticipate that a plan will be delivered to you in the spring in time for submission to the federal government. We are trying to vet that through every one of these bodies, the Accountability Commission, the Superintendent's Advisory Council. We'll be meeting with the superintendents this afternoon informally about a number of these issues as well. And I think that process is going quite well. But you also should not expect that you will have to take all of those policies in one big chunk. We'll be trying to stage it for you so that we can focus on discrete things at discrete meetings over the course of the spring. I'm happy to answer any questions about all of that. Obviously, we're going to have a full agenda for the spring, and I'm very much looking forward to it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair, I have a
Yes,
question.
you spoke.
Superintendent, please talk us through where we are with the standards that are coming to us in March and what we can do to help promote opportunities for the public to get involved in commenting on those standards prior to our meeting.
The science standards?
Yes.
The science standards have been developed. We used a similar process of the portal. I believe we received something on the order of 10,000 individual comments on individual standards within the portal. I believe that was roughly the number. And we continue to receive comment. The committees that are developing the standards, both the three subcommittees and the main committee, have been meeting in public and will be finalizing them in February, which is why I believe that they're ready for March. That means the final version will be posted in February for final comment, well in anticipation of your March discussion. I do think one of the things that was done well by the board, this board, was to appoint people to that panel who represented very diverse views already. And you can imagine on issues related to science that there are going to be some issues that evoke diverse views or provoke diverse views. I think that those issues are being surfaced on the committees, and the committees are working through already how does the law treat these things, how should we handle wording of issues that are sensitive issues. And so I believe that on the record, in public, those things have already been voiced before they'll be getting to you today, or at the meeting.
Any other questions? Okay. We don't need a motion to accept the report, I don't think, so we can move on to the next item.
Next item is board committee reports. Item 6.1, Academic Goals and Instructional Improvement Committee. Dr. Bofi.
On behalf of the Academic Goals and Instructional Improvement Committee, I move to approve motions 1 through 11.
We have a second to that motion, Ms. Jones? Thank you. Do you have any comments or questions? Hearing none. Do we have any objections to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item.
Next item, 6.2, Administration and Finance Committee. Mr. Davis.
On behalf of the Admin and Finance Committee, I move to approve motions 1 through 26.
We have a second? Ms. Jones?
I want to recuse.
Yeah. Like,
It's not this one.
Yes, it is.
Note the recusals.
Recuse. I'd like to recuse myself on motions 6 through 17, please.
I'd like to recuse from motion 10, please.
I'll second it. Sure.
Okay, Ms. Jones seconded. Ms. Holloway is recusing herself. Do we have that captured? And then we'll go to Ms. Voce.
On motion 10, I'd like to recuse.
And Thomason on motion 16.
Okay, can I repeat these, please?
Yes.
Okay, so the recusals are Ms. Edmiston, motions 10, 14, 15. Ms. Holloway, motions 6 through 17. Dr. Thomason, motion 16. And Ms. Voce, motion 10. Is that correct? Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a comment card
Yes.
on this item. Mr. Scott Richard? He waves? Okay. Thank you. Do we have any comments or questions from the BESE members? Hearing none, do we have any objections to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item.
Next item is Educator Effectiveness Committee. Dr. Jones.
On behalf of the Educator Effectiveness Committee, I move to approve motions 1 through 9.
Okay, do we have a second? Mrs. Jones? Any questions from BESE members? Hearing none, any objections to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item.
Next item, 6.4, School Innovation and Turnaround Committee. Dr. Jones.
On behalf of the School Innovation and Turnaround Committee, I move to approve motions 1 through 4 and 6 through 19, pulling motion 5, and noting for the record that Dr. Jones recused himself on motion 5 and did not vote on 7 and 8.
Okay. Do we have a
I'd
second
like
to
to
that,
go-
Ms. Edmiston? Okay. Do we have any questions on that portion of that item?
I'd
Mrs.
I'd
Lewis?
like to note that I'm abstaining on 6 and 7.
Okay.
And I'm in opposition to 6, 7, and 8.
Ms. Voce, please note her opposition to those items.
Dr.
Okay.
Thompson.
Any other questions or comments? Ms.
Dr. Thompson,
Edmiston?
opposition to motion 7.
Okay. We have Ms. Edmiston?
Yes.
And
Thomason,
Mr.
number
Thomason?
7. Motion number 7, in opposition.
Thank you.
We have that captured?
I do, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Rock? We have Mr. Rock?
6, 7, and 8. Vote no.
No. Opposition. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, do we have Ms. Debbie Moe? Could you go speak to us this morning? Thank you.
Good morning, Debbie Moe, representing the Louisiana Association of Educators. I am speaking on the frameworks for the two schools, Key Academy and Max. First of all, I want everyone on the BESE board panel to understand that LAE believes in the child first, but we believe in every child first. The new frameworks that are being set up for the two schools that serve dyslexic children is at best a fix that circumvents the rules and BESE policies in place for charter school closure. LAE is not opposed to erring on the side of children with dyslexia. What we do object to is the complete disregard for other schools, traditional, charter, and a voucher, who serve populations of dyslexic children all around the state. To some degree, this is an accountability issue because SBS scores determine whether a school remains open, is taken over by the state, loses its charter, or loses its voucher funding. Even more troubling is the fact that other alternative frameworks are slated for development, according to what I understood from yesterday's discussions. And again, schools are not schools that are designated specifically as alternative schools or schools that serve only certain at-risk populations will not be able to access those frameworks to extend their operations. I have two asks of you as Louisiana State School Board. First, that you exercise your oversight to figure out a way to incorporate this fix to all schools under your jurisdiction, or to vote no on this item. Secondly, I would ask that if you do continue along this line, that you not forget the Special School District 1 schools and schools within the juvenile justice system. They serve Louisiana's most vulnerable students and should be held to a rigorous but different standard as well. It is, of course, my contention that what you do for one, you do for all, or you risk the criticism of playing favorites. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion on the floor. We've noted the objections. Let's move on to, let's get those cleared off. Okay. Other than the noted objections, are there any other objections to the motion? And can staff tell us?
Pull number 5?
Yes. Do the objections leave us with a majority in the positive? Okay, then that motion carries. And now we go to item number 5.
Correct. Item number 5, on motion of Dr. Bophy, seconded by Mr. Garvey, the School Innovation and Turnaround Committee recommends that the board approve the Red River Charter Academy to commence operation of one Type 2 charter school in Walls Parish no later than the fall of 2017, contingent upon the following: completion of a pre-opening pre-opening requirements as determined by the LDE, addressing any conditions or special considerations set forth by BESE, and execution of the charter contract prior to opening.
Okay, we have comment cards on this, but we need to get a motion on the floor. We have a motion supporting that. Item. So we have a motion to support what was done yesterday?
I move to support what was done yesterday.
Okay, you move again this morning? Okay, do we have a second on that? Mr. Davis? Okay. Do we have comments from BESE members, or do we want to hear comments from the public? Okay. Can we get Thelma Prater, Debbie Bain, and Walter Rogers to come down, please? Who would like to go first?
I'll go. My name's Debbie Bain. I'm the Child Welfare and Attendance Supervisor for Walls Parish School Board. I've been in the Walls Parish school system for 34 years. The last 10 years I've been an administrator. My last 4 has been in Child Welfare and Attendance. My job is the students, every student in a Walls Parish. I visit homes as early as yesterday. I visit with students who are worried about the equitability of education. I have nothing against Red River Charter Academy. I do not think it will be effective for all of the students in our district. I worked for the last 4 years on our DSEG suit with the Department of Education, and I worked very closely, and I understand that the plaintiff has reversed his direction as far as supporting Red River Charter. We now have 2 of our high schools that are no longer racially identifiable, and we're also working in that direction with our elementary schools. I do believe the Charter Academy will affect the work that's been done for the last years by our district to make all of our schools equitable for all of our students. Do we have issues? Absolutely. But I do think this Charter Academy will go backwards in all the work that we've done. I don't see it as being an opportunity for all of our students to have part in this educational opportunity. I think we will lose money, and also the students that are not part of this school will not have the success because of the money it's going to pull from our district. I'm concerned for the welfare of all of the students in our district having the best education possible. And I do see, like I said, as early as yesterday, I visit homes with students who will not be able to apply to go to this school. We're still in charge of educating all of our students the same, and I see this is going to be a negative effect on our school system.
Good morning. My name is Thelma Prater, Assistant Superintendent, and I would like to say that not in defense or any negative toward Red River Charter, but we, as the Falls Parish School Board, we have a charter school, which is LaSalle, and we have accomplished basically the same thing that you are allowing Red River Charter to open to do. We are an A school. We produce, or we work with our teachers to produce well-educated kids. We have one in the audience, Mr. Stanley Celestine. So again, the district has done what you have challenged us to do. We have an A school. We are producing great kids going to college with scholarships, high ACT scores. So I'm asking you to reconsider your recommendation and support of Falls Parish School Board without opening up another charter school, because we have been successful with LaSalle.
Yes, sir.
I'm Walter Rogers, a native of Falls Parish and a resident of Falls Parish. I'm a product of the public school system of Falls Parish. I'm also a retired employee of the Falls Parish school system. I did 17 years in the classroom teaching high school English. I did 17 additional years at the central office, and upon my retirement, I was director of federal programs. We do a good job in Falls Parish for children. I said on yesterday, and I repeat today, that if you took a dart and threw it at a Falls Parish map, and whatever spot it touched, if there's a child living there or near there, that child is welcomed and served with open arms, whether that person is in a wheelchair and cannot make a step, as is the case of a student who applied to be Student of the Year a year or so ago, or if you are a student whose behavior is such that he's being served by 2 adults, a degree teacher and a paraprofessional, because if he was served in the classroom, he would disturb the class. That would jeopardize the learning of others. But we take the expense and privilege to provide educational service to that child. There is no lottery to get in. If you live in a Falls, you will be served. I have nothing against the Red River Academy, but we are doing what the state of Louisiana says. The federal government says all powers not granted to them is vested in the state. And those powers are for us to educate every child in the Falls Parish, and we do that. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Okay, can we get Chris LaCour, Blaine Duzat, and Van Bogus, please?
My name is Chris LaCour. I'm the current president of the Avoyelles Parish School Board. I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak in front of you this morning. As previously stated, I am absolutely in no opposition to the people on the Red River Charter Academy Board, nor do I look down on their efforts in wanting to accomplish what the goal they've set. My biggest issue in looking at the kids of the parish is, our timing with this. In our desegregation order, I think Dr. Boffey said yesterday, these kids don't care if we go back to court. They don't care if we're in court. They don't care if we're unitary. Excuse me. They could care less if we're on the news or who we are sitting in that boardroom. But looking beyond that, should this desegregation case be altered in any way, I feel that some of our kids may end up suffering for unknown factors, unknown of what could happen if our desegregation efforts are altered, or if this school would open and force us to close one of our other schools. Of course, we have challenges and we have unique situations to our parish that every parish faces. They have their own situations that they have to fight with every day. But our unknowns are just as certain as the Red River Charter's unknowns. We are assuming, or they are assuming, that they will pull kids back into the parish that have left. They are assuming that their scores would be better, teaching the way that they plan to teach. They are assuming that, their financials will be there to support the system that they look to build. It's all uncertainties on both sides, but at the end of the day, I'd ask that you seriously consider denying the charter now and giving the Avoyelles Parish School Board a chance to work more closely with the Red River Charter Academy once our desegregation case is up and our look back is over. I think it would be beneficial to both systems working together inside the parish rather than having another state-run school come into a parish of our size. Thank you.
My name is Van Kojas. I've served on the Avoyelles Parish School Board for 10 plus years. I've served as president twice. I've served all during the trial for the desegregation case that we have just gone through and more or less completed. We were found by the federal judge to be in unitary status with a 3-year look-back period. We are midway through that look-back period. My greatest fear is that we already have 2 charter schools in Avoyelles Parish, one type 2 and one type 4. My greatest fear is that if we start diluting the parish with more charter schools, is that we are going to end up back in a segregated system, and we certainly don't want that. We have met every of the 7 factors that Judge Drell put before us. We have spent millions of dollars to do the things that we have needed to do to get us unitary, and we are at that point, and I would hate to see that thrown to the wayside, because if we have more charter schools, that's exactly what's going to happen. I would hope that you would join with us and at this time turn down the application by Red River Charter and allow us to possibly work with them in the future once the desegregation order is completely lifted. We just ask that you please consider that very strongly. Thank you.
I'm Blaine Dozai. I'm superintendent of schools in Avoyelles Parish. You may be tired of hearing from me, so I'm just going to be brief this morning. I want to reiterate a couple of things and then ask you one simple question. I'd like to reiterate the fact that we sat here a year ago and our state superintendent recommended denial of this for 2 simple reasons. We held up our end of the deal. We have shown growth. We are not where we need to be, but we have shown growth, considerable growth, and I talked to you about that yesterday. The second thing he talked about was risking tipping the racial balance and putting our desegregation order in big jeopardy. And I stand here before you, or sit here before you, just like I did yesterday and like I did last year, concerned for our system. And the comment was made yesterday, we're about the kids first and the system second. In my heart, the system is the kids. The system is the kids. And we're criticized for putting financial issues first, but we cannot serve our kids without those finances. And it simply boils down to that. I will ask you one simple question. Your state superintendent has recommended denial. The BESE member who has worked closely with this case and knows what's going on in Avoyelles Parish has recommended denial. The local school board that were elected by the citizens of Avoyelles Parish voted overwhelmingly for denial. My question is, why does that make you more qualified to override all of those decisions? Please respect what the local board, your state superintendent, the local BESE member, and your local superintendent are recommending. Please stand by us, stand by them, and deny the granting of this charter. Thank you.
Okay, can we get Michael Lacombe, Jamie Taylor Lacombe, and Pat Hours to come down, please?
Good morning. I'm Jamie Lacombe, and I'm the chief accountant at the school board, and I've been in this position for the past 11 years. I will speak to you from a financial viewpoint and the burden it would cause on the school board. Most districts, along with our state, are struggling to maintain balanced budgets. We are not unique to this. As mandated by the Department of Education, our district strives to achieve high marks on financial risk assessment. Opening yet another school to provide duplicate services would indeed create a financial hardship on our district. Duplicating services is simply wasting taxpayer dollars. I would ask that you please deny Red River Charter application to prevent further financial burdens on our need to educate the children of our parish.
And that was Ms. Lacombe?
Michael Lacombe. I'm a school board member in Avoyelles Parish, and I was president of the board when we were granted unitary status in May of 2015. And I sat in many hours and days of meetings with the federal government and to iron this out and to come to an agreement between the two. It took a long time. We've been under this lawsuit for 44 years. And when I was elected on the board in 2010, the first goal with the board was to become unitary. And that's what the board's goal was, and we put our mind to it. We spent millions and millions of dollars to get facilities equal across the parish, to get the ratio equal across the parish, the bus routes, all the 7 green factors. We've worked on them and spent millions of dollars. We've paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to experts to come in and help us to get unitary. And when we sat with the judge and he granted us unitary of May of 2015, he says the federal government wanted a 5-year look back. And we told the federal government, listen, we've been working this hard. We've done everything y'all have asked us to do. We've been over backwards. We think 3 years is long enough. So when we went to court in Alexandria in front of the federal judge, and the federal government said, we want 5 years. And we said, no, we'd rather 3 years. And the government looked at us and he said, y'all have done everything y'all could possibly do to satisfy the government. So we're going to give you a 3-year look back. And keep things like they are. Don't add schools. I mean, if we add one classroom, we have to get approved by the federal government. So we've done everything the government has asked us. We stayed up to our end of the bargain. We're just asking for y'all to give us a chance to end this desegregation lawsuit, and then we can move forward on other things in the parish. But we have spent millions of dollars on the facilities, on the buses, new buses, and everything for the kids of our parish. And I appreciate you listening to me this morning. Thank you.
Mr. Lacombe, just a second. Was it Ms. Lacombe?
Yes.
Okay.
We're not married.
Ms. Lacombe, could you help me understand something? Can you tell me what the ratio of minority to non-minorities is in your district?
It's right at 50-50 right now, Superintendent. It's right at 50-50 right now.
And the Red River Charter people say that they will be taking in minorities versus non-minorities at a rate of 50-50. How would that resegregate the remaining public school system if they're taking in the same percentages as the school
because
system
of the
is
areas they're going
in
to be
existence?
drawing from.
I'm sorry, what?
Because of the areas they're going to be drawing from. You know, they say they're going to draw over the whole parish, but it's going to be hard for a child that lives 35 miles on one end of the parish to come to a local school where it's going to be and stuff. That's, you know, the...
Well, I understand that. It's hard for children to come from all across the parish, but if they're pulling in children at the same minority, non-minority rate that the school system has in existence, I don't understand how that would affect your segregation or desegregation.
They say that's what they're going to do, but the other charter school we have in the parish is not even close to that. They say they were going to do the same thing, but they're not even close to our numbers. I mean,
if they were to do what they say, how would it affect your segregation? Or is it only that you don't think they will do what they say?
If they do what they say and stuff, it would, you know, and it equal over all the schools, it wouldn't make that a difference. But it's going to be very hard for them to draw 50-50 across the parish, because we've seen it in the other two charter schools. It doesn't happen.
Okay. But if they did, if they did.
If.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
In the other two charter schools, what is the demographic? Do you know?
What is
Do you know the racial breakdown? In
the ratio at LaSasse is 62-38 white, and at Vols Charter School it's 35. I'm not exactly. It's around 35-65.
But in a Vols parish, in the school system, it's 50-50.
It's 50-50.
And how long has it been like that?
Oh, it was close to those numbers, and especially closer since we did unitary and we offset the balance and stuff. It's gotten closer since desegregation.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question for the superintendent. The other two charter schools, are we keeping an eye on their at-risk population?
We are.
And are they within the proper range? We're not allowed to reprimand them on the racial makeup, but we are on the at-risk makeup, aren't we?
We regulate it on the at-risk makeup and on the disabilities makeup. I don't have the numbers offhand for the school that we do regulate. The last time that I believe we reviewed the school, it had not hit those measures. For that particular type 2.
It had not hit the proper measures?
Correct.
Are we taking any actions to try and correct that?
Yes, they now lose points in their annual review for not, they're marked down for not hitting special education or at-risk marks, and then there's a corrective action required in response. It's a 13-year school. It's a K through 12 school, which makes the changing the makeup of the enrollment on a percentage basis particularly difficult. But it's fair to say that of all of the type 2s, this is one that, while it has outstanding results, and that, by the way, for black children, white children, students with disabilities, the results are outstanding, It is an extraordinary school, and I don't doubt that anybody here would dispute that from the Boyles Parish. However, it's fair to say that on this issue, this is not one of its strongest elements. I think there's a lot of reasons for that. I don't know how much that has to say about this particular group, this group.
Right.
But I do think it's a note of caution about any group that's in front of you.
That's what I was looking to do, was just make a note of caution that we are watching those issues. Ms. Voce?
Just along those lines, because I'm not ready to comment on this yet, your question, Mr. Harvey, I've asked the department, I think at the last meeting, to come with a report on all of the charters, the type 2s, if they're meeting by law, the at-risk population, the correct percentages, and the percentages of students with disabilities. And they told me they are gathering that information. They weren't ready to come here in January, but they would come to us in March with this. And I think it should entail more than just losing a few points on the, I guess, on the scoring rubric, because it is an actual law based in statute, those particular percentages. And I guess that discussion will come when that comes before us. But they're mandated by law to have those percentages, and I think we need to be very vigilant in making sure that when new year students are accepted, that those ratios are in effect for the type 2s. But I'm sure that discussion will come up when the report comes in March.
Yeah, I think you're expressing the feelings of most or all of the BESE members. We take this issue seriously. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Pat Hours, are you going to speak this morning?
I'm giving my time to the rest of my board members.
Okay. Stanley Celestine.
The rest of the board.
Lee Fryery, and Stephanie Morrow.
Good morning. My name is Stanley Celestine Jr. I'm a board member and student advocate for Red River Charter Academy. I am a product of the Boyles Parish Public School System, and I attend the Type 4 charter, LaSalle. It has a very selective process, and it also undergoes an interview process. So in terms of what makes Red River Charter Academy different from LaSalle, the biggest difference right there is that this school is an open lottery. Whereas LaSalle and Boyles Charter School, well, Boyles Charter School does a lottery, but LaSalle has an interview process. According to your process, Red River Charter Academy is eligible to open a public Type 2 charter school in Boyles Parish. We have gone through both the district and state process, and we have met and exceeded all of the standards set forth by your process and have been recommended by SchoolWorks. We have known from the start that our DSEC battle would take place in the federal courts after approval, and we have been preparing for this since day one. The segregation is a legal issue and should be decided upon in a courtroom. We have every intention of mirroring the parish demographics and have already started a very intense recruiting plan. Here's a little background information on the Boyles Parish. The first desegregation filing was 50 years ago. 21 years later, in 1988, the rural schools were consolidated to 3 high schools. Based on the past, we should not expect any major change to happen until 2028. I was reading the article, and I actually noticed where Superintendent White, and I'm going to quote him, "We cannot wait to do what is right for children." And Red River Charter Academy believes that we cannot wait to do what is right for children in Boyles Parish. Our middle and high schools are in the bottom 20% of the state, and that is unacceptable to us. Our lowest performing high school is Bunkie Magnet High School. And if I would not be fortunate enough to attend LaSalle, I would be zoned for that school. Bunkie Magnet High School, their students are not educated in a safe and challenging environment. In only the first semester of this current school year, 266 of its 552 students were at least sent to the office for a total of 1,193 referrals. 345 suspensions and 20 expulsions were also reported. Again, that was only the first semester of this current school year. Students, seniors especially, also struggle through the college application process, only to realize later on that their higher education institution requires a minimum ACT English sub-score of 18 and 19. This was true for some of my peers that attend Bunkie Magnet High School that were placed in an ACT prep class with a substitute teacher. In addition, parents and students have expressed that they feel that they are victims of a lie because there is no real magnet program in place. And if you drive 2 minutes down the road from Bunkie Magnet High School, you will find Bunkie Elementary, the district's lowest performing school. That school's school performance score was 38.8. That's 16.9 points down from 2014-2015. And so your website states that parents know what is best for their child, and you should be provided with quality choices. Louisiana believes is based on the premise that families should be allowed to choose the school that is best for their child. What are our choices? The other two charter schools have a waiting list a mile long, and it is very difficult to get into. Valles Parish has an economically disadvantaged population of 85%, which means most can't afford private school, and homeschool is not an option because both parents work to make ends meet. So the majority of the students are stuck in failing schools with little to no discipline, low academic standards, and no social or emotional support. Please help the students of Avoyelles and give us our fair chance to go to the federal judge and present our information. If you can, we have the documentation to get through the process, as you can see, and so we hope to build the school that students and parents of Avoyelles deserve. We have worked long and hard, and we appreciate all of the support from the Department of Education. And our goal and our mission for doing it is simply because we care about children, and we care about education deeply. Now the question is to you. Thank you for your opportunity to speak.
Celestine, as the chairman of the committee yesterday said, you present yourself very well. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
If I understand it right, one of the purposes of the desegregation case is to protect and do what's right, with the focus being on minorities. Can you tell me, in your opinion, what would be best for the minority population in Avoyelles? Would it be to open this charter or to not open this charter?
I would not be on this board or be an advocate for this school if it was not best for minority students. Yes, it is. DSEG is something to worry about. But if you look at the achievement gap that exists in Valles Parish, and if you look at the schools that are majority minority, they are failing compared to the majority schools. It is best that this school is approved to provide a choice for all children and minorities.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Again, my name is Lee Fryery, school leader, Red River Charter Academy. We sincerely appreciate the serious attention you've given this very delicate situation. We respect the great responsibility that you have as our BESE board. This very rigorous process the Department of Education and School Works has set forth, as well as our mutual goals to provide the best educational opportunities for the students that we all intend to serve. We have already been waiting. We continue to ask for approval today, which will allow us to go to the appropriate next step, and that is the federal court, where we have the confidence in our educational plan and the support of the lead intervener of the desegregation case, whom you've already heard from directly and you will hear from again today. As far as desegregation, School Works, the most rigorous application process in the United States of America, we have met and exceeded those standards 2 years in a row. And part of that is we have to provide documentation of our school. who would attend. You can't just say, we want a school, here's what we'll teach them. You have to prove that you have students, that you have people, that if you would open tomorrow, do you have applications? So we have put forth a very rigorous recruitment program where we have been recruiting students for the past 4 years. And as of today, 48% of our age-appropriate applicants that we have pre-enrollment are minority. We also have 40% of our applicants that are attending school out of parish or out of the public school system. Therefore, we have the opportunity and documentation from our hard work, from our efforts, from the rigorous program that's been set forth to prove whether or not we can meet those standards, which we have. We ask that you not deny our application. That can be detrimental to our support and our following, considering we have met those rigorous standards in this process 2 years in a row. We are asking for an approval with a conditional option to open if necessary. We're more than willing to respect desegregation. We've worked tirelessly with the district. The district spoke earlier that they would like to work with us. We just negotiated with them for 6 weeks, and they decided not to work with us. We changed our grade configuration. We agreed on a higher demographic acceptance rate, up to 50%, when their own charter school cannot mirror those demographics. But we can, at this point, with documentation, which we've had to prove. Because we've met the standards of this very extensive and rigorous process for 2 years, we're requesting your consideration also as a fiduciary of the public funds that it takes to go through each cycle to get to this point as well. Our local district has paid an evaluator twice and would have to do so again in the very short coming months, and your agency has already paid an evaluator 3 times. A recommendation to deny with a request for us to reapply would cost your entity and our already, as you have heard, already struggling district these monies again to tell you that we've met the standards set forth by SchoolWorks and this process that you trust. It was also mentioned that our curriculum was not unique. However, our curriculum would be the only STEM school curriculum with a character development curriculum alongside of it in the entire parish. We truly feel that our model is extremely innovative, and our parents and supporters are very excited for this new educational opportunity, which they deserve. Every year that goes by, the real issue is being concealed, and that is not getting to the real potential of our students, whether it be financial, whether it be legal. At the end of the day, our students continue to suffer on a daily basis. We have a sound educational plan of action. We're ready for our next steps. We've risked our careers, our very livelihoods, because this is not about self-preservation. This is about kids. We trust and have the utmost faith that you too want what's best to help the students of Avoyelles Parish. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you. And let me remind the speakers that we are trying to keep the speakers to 3 minutes apiece, so if you could keep it within that time frame, that would be very helpful. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. I'm Stephanie Morrow. I'm the founder and executive director of Red River Charter School, and I'm sorry I couldn't be here yesterday for my paying job obligations, but I'm happy to be here today to speak to you. 5 years ago, a group of parents came to me and said, we are going to have to move out of the parish if something doesn't change in Avoyelles Parish with their education system. And I was an educator, and they looked to me for advice. I didn't have an answer for them. I have 3 children of my own that I was worried about as well. So that started the process here of thinking, what can we do? What can we do? So I went on the state's website, and it said in big bold words, call to action, educators, parents, do something for your kids. And so I started researching, how does this work? What do I have to do? And now you see where it's gotten us. We have formed Red River Charter Academy. I have an amazing group of people that have been working tirelessly, leaving their families behind, taking off work to do things, and we have proved that we are hardworking individuals and we are here for the right reason. I am a lifelong citizen of Avoyelles Parish. I am a product of the public school system, and we had a wonderful public school system at one time, and we can still have a wonderful public school system. But our children are not getting that opportunity that we had in our school system. So we just want the chance for our kids to have a better education, to have a safe environment to go to school. I have two that have graduated already. They successfully graduated from the charter school, and they are in college attending now. I have one at home that I'm homeschooling because it just was not where she needed to be. So as I work full-time and homeschool my child, I sit here and think of all the other children in our parish whose parents do not have the means to do what I can do and homeschool their children. So I'm asking you today to please consider all of those parents that are in that same situation. You've seen all of our board's testimonies in the last 2 days. You've heard the stories. These are real people. We are a grassroots foundation. We are the people of Avoyelles Parish, and we really, really look forward to working with the parish and making it better. We're not saying we have all the answers, but we have some really great ideas that deserve the chance to be implemented in the school. We appreciate your rigorous process for the charter school application. It is very rigorous and it was very difficult, but we learned so much along the way. We were encouraged by the chance to sit down with our local school board, but you know, that didn't work out. But we did learn some valid concerns that they had, and we made changes to our plan to alleviate those concerns that they had. We pushed our opening date back after DSEG so that we could, you know, allow them to gain that unitary status and not be under the look-back period anymore. So, famous quote by Gandhi says, "Be the change that you want to see in the world," and that's exactly what we're doing as a board. We are trying to be the change that we want to see in our parish, and it needs it. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we get Sarah Vandergriff, Scott Richard, and Caroline Romer?
Good morning. Sarah Vandergriff, Legal and Policy Director for the Charter School Association. I'm here just to provide information for y'all regarding how charter schools and the desegregation process work. For around the state, there are currently about 5 to 6 schools currently under charter schools under federal desegregation order. One school, Darbon Woods, recently got out of it when this parish recently received unitary status. So the way a charter school in DSEG works is once a charter school is approved, it cannot open until it actually goes before the federal court and receives permission to open. Darbon Woods was the first charter school to really go through that, and the federal court actually prohibited the Darbon Woods for opening until they reached certain mandates put on it by the federal court. So they had to actually delay their opening for a year until they make the federal standards. So a charter school intervenes into it. It's on their own. They have to spend their own money going through this process. They intervene, and generally speaking, the court looks to what is the impact that the opening of a charter school will have upon the district. And they look at a number of factors. They will look at the staffing, the race ratio of their staff. They look at the diversity of their board. They look at their student enrollment. They look at their facilities. They look at extracurriculars the school provides, as well as transportation. So all of this goes into the court's factoring. What services is this school going to provide? Will it have the ability to attract a diverse student population? From there, it actually puts a mandate on them that, generally speaking, the charter school has to be within a 5 to 10% percentage of what the district requirements are. And every time, the charter school has to keep coming before the federal court to make sure that it is abiding by what the federal court standards are. The federal court even goes so far as to look at how they're recruiting both students as well as teachers and board members. So it's more than just who's already enrolled, but what efforts are you making to recruit from diverse populations. The two most recent cases that we have are Tangi, Charter School in Tangipahoa, and Greater Grace. That was just approved by you all last year. in St. James. So two interesting things about that. Last year, when Tangi was first approved, it went before the Eastern District under Judge Lamel. Judge Lamel was the first person or the first judge to put a severe hold on the amount of funding that could go to Tangipahoa. It withheld the state equivalent of the local portion, equivalent 25% of their budget. So it withheld that for a year. Then they had to go back this past year to see again where Tangi stands, if it met the standards, and if the funding still had to flow back from the charter school to the district. In that ruling, the district court, to be honest, granted the full funding back to Tangi and had some pretty harsh language for the district. To quote, he was very frustrated that the district continued to use their partisan political puffery in delaying their unitary status by generally seeking to continue to strip funds from one individual school instead of taking the necessary actions to correct their own financial issues. The other case is also before the Eastern District with Judge Lamel with greater grace. He too had some pretty harsh language for St. James, saying that their efforts have been nominal at best in terms of creating a unitary status within the district, as evident by their 50-year-old litigation, and that their issue of trying to curb parent choice within the residents of their parish was a direct impact, negative impact to the residents of their parish who have been frustrated by a district, again, as he said, who have exerted nominal efforts at best. St. James Parish has recently appealed that decision. So it's currently sitting before the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals as we speak. We anticipate the Fifth Circuit, they just took briefing on it, and we anticipate that there will be oral arguments. Across the United States, there's still a handful of states that are under DSEG orders that do impact charter schools. Right now, Louisiana is generally the one that has the most sort of current involvement. You see a lot also happening in South Carolina as well as Missouri. So this is something that the feds are starting to look at in terms of how do you compare parent choice with also these 50 to 60-year-old DSEG issues. So, but generally speaking, I just want to clarify that when a charter school gets approved by you, it does go before the federal court, and the federal court takes it all together. So it's looking at where are the district efforts, where are the charter school efforts, and how are we going to hold everyone accountable. So that being said, we personally, as a LAPCS, generally don't speak on whether or not you think an application is worthy of being approved, but we did want to make sure that you have a full understanding of how the DSEG works with a charter school seeking to open. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Vandergriff, hold on a second. Do we have any questions? I do. Trying to get some information. I was not aware that we had approved charter schools before, that we had a precedent of doing this when charter schools are involved or the district is involved in desegregation cases.
Yes, sir. You
And
currently
we've done that
have
twice.
You currently have Delhi, you have Delta. Like I said, Darbon Woods was really the first one to kick it off. They have now, because their parish reached unitary status, they too are under unitary status. Avoyle, Greater Grace, Tangi, and also Lincoln. The Grambling School just recently had to go through their own DSEG issues as well when it converted from the lab school to a type 2 school. So it's still a pretty current thing. And again, it's all the same standards that the individual charter school board itself, before they can open, have to intervene into the lawsuit. And the court is going to dig into everything. The most recent ruling too, besides Tangi and Greater Grace, was Delhi. So Delhi, their parish is on the verge of unitary status as well, and their court just redid both the parish's DSEG rules as well as the charter school rules. And again, it actually required, it made agreement with the charter school and the district as to where the charter school has to give priority enrollment to a certain, essentially a certain pre-K and lower economic status neighborhood in order to make sure that there's more of a feeder pattern into that individual charter school to make sure that there's a continued racial balance between both black and white students as well as socioeconomic status. So again, the district court really digs into it, and it looks into where they're recruiting, how much money they're spending, where in terms of recruiting, what meetings are they are holding to inform parents that they are welcome to apply to the charter school and things like that. And if the federal court is not satisfied, he can hold them in contempt as well as take other steps against them in terms of mandates and making sure they apply. Excuse me, what?
He can rule a charter
school?
Well,
not necessarily in contempt, but he has the ability, the federal court has the ability to take corrective action against the charter school. So what happens is pretty much the same way as the federal court takes over from the state for a school under deseg order, they have the same ability to tell a charter school what to do as well.
Okay, maybe you clarify something else for me. There was some talk yesterday about if we approve this school, maybe the judge could issue a stay in order to...
So that's what happened in Darbon.
But you're saying that even before a stay would be issued, the charter school has to go to the judge and get permission.
Yes. So Darbon Woods, in that instance, so that was about 2007, that judge was not satisfied. He was not satisfied as the facility that Darbon Woods planned to open its doors. He also was not satisfied with the diversity of the charter school board as well as the staff. And they were very much concerned Darbon Woods was going to take over they were going to use a facility that had been previously closed by the district. But the court was much more concerned that that facility would have pulled too many white students, to be honest, from the neighborhood. That would have been a creaming effect. So he said you couldn't actually use that facility. So he banned them from using that facility, and they had to come back. They could not open the doors that fall. They had to wait a whole nother year and come back to the district to show, A, they have a facility that's more in a race-neutral zone. They had to change out board members, and they had to do a more diverse recruiting of staff members, as well as in showing how that they were going to recruit students, to be honest, black students. The judge was very much concerned that Darbon Woods, from its opening, would have appealed too much to the white community and would have caused a negative impact on the district, taking more white students out of the district, leaving a disproportionate number. So when Darbon opened, again, changed facility, changed their board, changed their staffing, and had to show recruiting efforts to make sure. And these are all in addition to the other requirements that are placed on the state in terms of who type 2 charter schools can recruit and the numbers that they have to have.
We were told yesterday that this group has gone to the judge and asked the judge what can they do to make sure they don't mess up the DSEG case, and the judge refused to answer that.
So the a judge can't give guidance. They can't give an opinion before the actions before them. Because a lot of people are asking, well, why can't we do that with Tangi, or why couldn't we do that with Greater Grace? Why couldn't you get a knowledge from the federal court before the state gives approval to open? And from a court, they can't take action until they actually have a party before them. Now, in the instance in the charter school, the nonprofit can't get before the federal court until they actually have the authority from either state or local district to run a public charter school. So you have right now just a nonprofit group that's applying to you. They won't have standing in a federal court unless they are approved. At that point, once they're approved, that then starts the action where they can then have standing before a court to ask, we just got approved to run a public school, but we understand before we can do that, we now have to take step 2 and see if you will approve us. That's right. As my boss just reminded me, the MFP does not start until federal court gives approval. And so if you were to approve the nonprofit today, they won't receive public dollars. They can't technically enroll any students. While they can recruit and talk to people about the potential opening of the school, nothing can happen until they actually get approval. So for Greater Grace, for instance, the federal court gave approval in August, I think 2 weeks before the school opened its doors. Tangi also got federal approval in July, so that was also about a 3-week window. So for the nonprofit organization, it is a tight window, and sometimes it's just a matter of how fast the court will actually take up the matter. And again, if the court doesn't come back in that summer before September starts, the school can't open.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Romer, were you going to speak?
Yes, but it was to another issue brought up. I wanted to point out, Superintendent Voce mentioned the law around at-risk and special ed requirements for charter schools, and she is correct. That is part of the law. There have been several changes there, but originally the law always called for charter schools to have an at-risk population that was reflective of the district. I just wanted to add the point that in that same law, it also gives authority to the Department of Ed and BESE to create an investigative process in which you're reporting out on what that population looks like in those schools, and that you determine if you believe there is, let's just call it malicious intent there, something that the school is doing that would create a barrier to it being something that all students are welcome to attend. So while there is a law that says you should look reflective of a district, there's also your ability to take a look and decide if, again, this school is operating with transparency and is truly open enrollment and not doing something that, again, would create a barrier for kids to be there. So for a quick example, the department could go in and look at their lottery process. What's on their application? Where are they advertising? Are they making any requirements, for example, that you come in for an orientation? So again, while that law does sit there to ensure that we are equitably giving access to all students, it does empower you to take a look and determine if good behavior or bad behavior is the cause for that.
Thank you. Mr. Richard?
Good morning, board members. Scott Richard, Executive Director of the School Boards Association. First, excuse me, from a standpoint of an elected school board member in a neighbor or nearby district to Evalls Parish that actually endured and worked to become unitary as a school board for 9 consecutive years, working to resolve an over 50-year-old desegregation problem that should have been solved 50 years ago. The process, as you've heard testimony on yesterday and today, is excruciating, not only for the policymakers, but the leaders of the district and the community itself, because of the simple fact that you're having to deal with issues that should have been resolved many, many, many years ago. It requires an intense focus on your budget. It requires an intense focus on positive community relations as you work to resolve the desegregation case. And it requires a great deal of patience and a great deal of concern for the students of the district that you're serving as an elected school board and as the leaders of a district. It also requires the state board, the folks that we're sitting in front of today, to really take a hard look at those local conditions and the local situation that from a high level here at the State Department, you may not have all the facts. You may not truly understand what's going on the ground. Charter statutes specifically reference federal desegregation consent decrees in the process as you look at approval or denial in the charter statutes. They're there for a reason. That reference is there for a reason, because of the issues associated with working to resolve these type matters in federal court. A couple of things, and Ms. Vandegrift did a great job of going through the green factors. I'm not going to pretend to be an attorney today, but all of us should be very familiar, as the Evalls Parish school system is, with the green factors. One of the things that goes unnoticed or hadn't been really touched on in this discussion is that the independent evaluator recommended by the Department of Education, as I understand things, to the Evalls Parish school system, recommended denial at the local level in this last process. Again, charter law makes a specific reference to federal deseg as a variable in that process. Ms. Vandegrift mentioned some other parishes that are currently dealing with ongoing litigation that's really holding up the resolution of long-standing federal consent decrees that have been in place across our state. If we have one in place, it's one too many, but there's several more than one. She mentioned Tangipahoa Parish, where there's questions about funding and it's going back and forth. Concordia Parish is one that I think she did not mention. It's my understanding there's ongoing litigation there as well. There's a hearing in the coming days to talk about funding, and the overall guiding principle in a federal desegregation case is to further desegregation, not further segregation. St. James Parish, consistently consumed with federal desegregation issues. There's a board meeting tonight in St. James Parish where they will be discussing similar matters, and the charter school, Greater Grace, that was referenced, is still part of those discussions in litigation. Another piece that goes unmentioned is choice. If we're going to really focus on choice, I listened carefully yesterday throughout the day, again today. What fails to be mentioned is that there are 2 charter schools in Evalds Parish already. We've heard the racial makeup of those 2 charter schools. It's very obvious that that racial makeup of those 2 charter schools are not furthering desegregation. However, the Evalds Parish school system, as a system, testified that they're 50-50. Which is what the court is looking for in any federal desegregation case. In regards to choice, in yesterday's testimony and again today, we failed to mention that there are 2 Type 2 virtual charter schools that exist that any student in any parish can attend. There's also a number of private and parochial schools as far as choice goes in Evalds Parish. What I would ask for you today to consider in this decision is that no local school board, no charter school board, no state board that I'm familiar with, or the state of Louisiana has any excess finances to continue to litigate. Say that again. No governmental body in this state at this point in time that I'm aware of has excess resources to pay lawyers to litigate issues that you can resolve right here today on this particular matter. You've heard a commitment from the Evalds Parish School Board to reconsider the application in earnest once desegregation matters are cleared up. And we'd ask that you support the state superintendent's recommendation today to deny the application and continue to work at the local level with the department's support, as we heard throughout the day yesterday. And if need be, the support of the Charter Schools Association and the School Boards Association to get involved in that process if we need to, in an inherently local matter, to help bring those 2 parties together at the local level. Again, I thank you for your time. Had no intent to come to the table today, but having heard the testimony through a long day yesterday and hearing it again this morning, at the end of the day, the federal court overrides all of us, I think.
Thank you. So
we would ask that you recognize that and support the state superintendent's recommendation today.
Thank you. Can we have Alyssa Tassin, Wendy McCann, and Jessica Cuvion, please? Okay.
I'm a board member for Red River Charter Academy.
Can you check your microphone, please?
I'm sorry.
There we go.
Alyssa Piazza-Tassan, Red River Charter Academy board member. I'm an attorney in my personal, in my personal life, but I would never be able to, in any capacity, represent the board. But I can tell you, our board has met with an attorney who could proceed with us to the federal courts. We haven't just talked about what's going to happen next if we get approved. We've taken action. In fact, in our SchoolWorks interview, we talked about the Tangi case and how we don't want to waste anyone's time or money or get any of the hopes of our supporters up if we don't think we can address any concern of the federal judge moving forward. This is not assumptions. This is not speculation. This is work that we have done, as mentioned by by our principal. This is documentation that we can provide. But to get to my point, so I just wanted to point that out first. I want to reflect on only one thing I said yesterday and add to it a little bit. We cannot speculate what the judge could do. That's very dangerous. That's something we all agreed on. But what we can do is look to his actual words, which are provided in the public record. And I will open quote, "We will watch, now hopefully from the sidelines, to see that this school board does not forget the children in the name of personal politics," end quote. What we also know is that unitary status has been a very long and expensive process for our school district. And it doesn't seem from their comments that they're going to suggest to the court to extend the order, to increase the look back, to further the expense that they're dealing with at this time. And we've heard from the intervener, who is also a party in that action, and he is saying, and is here today and can speak for himself, that it does not seem from his comments that he's going to ask the federal court to extend that. So what we do have is not an assumption, but is a reasonable probability that the court will not, on its own motion or from the sidelines, decide to interfere with something that has been determined to be in the best interest of students. But I'll say this, even if under a deseg order, we have 3 years to open, and we have proven to you all that we are willing to negotiate to do what is in the best interest of our students, whether it be with an entity, whether it be with a judge, whether it be with our local districts. We want what is best for students, and that is why we are here, the students. Red River Charter Academy keeps that as our focus, which means we focus on maintaining a diverse student population that is racially balanced. We worry about having a diversity of abilities within our school. We want our children to have a diversity of abilities. And if that means disabilities, that's a great thing in our eyes. We want to have a diverse faculty, and we have a diverse governing board. This is part of our mission. And this mission is not it didn't arise because of a court order. Our mission started 5 years ago in the hearts of our very first volunteers and our school leader. And it is since that inception that people have seen the integrity of our board and the integrity of our mission, and they have been touched and they have stepped up. Mr. Holmes is one of those people who is now joined in our mission, and we're thankful for that. So what I'm asking you today is, if our mission meets your standards, then we know that our application has. So please approve this school, because only then will we have the opportunity to find out what the judge actually thinks. And I would like to also point out, if I have another second, that we know the process will be very expensive, and we have been in contact with many investors who we think also share in our mission, and hopefully so the district will not have to bear any of the cost of our intervention into the suit.
And before we move on, considering your legal background, do you agree with what was said before, that before you open, you would have to go get permission from the judge?
Much more articulately stated than I could have ever explained it. In fact, I would love to speak with her after, because I was able to learn. I've read the Tangi case. Just this morning, we spoke to Mr. Jackson, who's with Delta Charter. We are in constant communication with these schools because they've already been through it. So we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We want to learn from them so that we can get to the accomplishment of our mission. That is something else we will have to undertake, but we've been talking about that. Like I mentioned in our SchoolWorks interview, I promise you every board member, and they're probably shaking their heads behind me, has heard about the Tangi case. The attorney from the Tangi case spoke to us at one of our board meetings. I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but we are aware of these cases because understanding what they've been through, although very complex issues, is going to help us to get to the end goal quickly, efficiently, financially, and time-wise, so that we can do what is best for the students and get that going as soon as possible.
Okay, and you agree with the statement that you cannot go and get permission from the judge until after we grant you a charter?
Absolutely. We will not have standing unless you approve us today.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Howard?
Thank you. I wasn't planning to speak. I'm a little bit hoarse this morning. But I'm glad that some of my young people back there turned in their cards so that I could get their time. One of the things that perhaps has been misunderstood by even our local board is the depth to which we have investigated and planned for the future of our school and for the betterment of kids that we plan to serve. One of the things that we were told very early on is go visit other charter schools. Go find out what they're doing, how they're being successful, how difficult it is to get started. Because the people that were advising us wanted to make sure we were up to the task. Because this isn't, as you well know, an easy thing to do. So we started visiting, and of course, this very wise consultant sent us to some districts in DSEG. Let me go just to our visit to Darbon Woods. We're driving through the wilderness, and according to my GPS, we're at the school. So I'm looking around, and there's a little closed school building in the country. It can't be it. Well, I guess Google or whatever hadn't upgraded. The judge would not let them open there. They were in the country. You couldn't get to the school. Only people with means to bring their children could probably get there, and it was in a white area of the parish. So we turned around, we went back in, we finally found them, we said, what's the deal? Oh, well, that's where we thought we were going to open. We had staff hired. We were ready to open school, had our classrooms ready. And the judge said, not happening. That was an eye-opening experience, ladies and gentlemen. We said, okay, what did you have to do? What kind of things did you have to do over the next year? And that's where we started really working hard. We found out that our location had to be accessible to a diverse population. The LDOE has been to Marksville and visited the site that is in our application. And I believe the news was brought back to Mr. White that it is a very accessible location. And if we change locations, it would not be without your approval. The next thing that the judge told them was, you have to get out and recruit. You can't sit back and say, oh, hello, sign up here. You have to give access to parents who may not have other access. We have literally been in neighborhoods knocking on doors because people don't have cars. People don't have phones. People don't have the internet. And we know that because we live there and we've worked in the schools and we know what our population is. Sure, we have plenty of white parents who get on the internet all the time. We have plenty of black parents that do that. But we can't assume that that parent or that child who needs us is going to have that access. We have to make sure that we're everywhere. We hold rallies. We advertise our rallies. Come and talk to us. Let us just give you information. And that's where we've gathered all of these stories that we hear. The next thing that the judge said, you have to have a local address, a local phone number where people can reach you. We've done all of that. We opened a temporary office in the family home of our CEO's husband's family. So needless to say, all of these issues that have come out are not issues that we were unaware of.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I'm curious about process. Yesterday, we spent a significant amount of time hearing from public comment related to the item. Thank you for your comments, deeply appreciative. I feel as though
We need to move along.
we need to be moving
I
along.
understand. Please,
Okay.
please keep your comments to 3 minutes. We will
Okay.
start the timer.
I thank you for your time.
Before you go, let me
Yes,
ask you one
yes,
thing. Someone earlier said that it's either impossible or next to impossible for you to achieve, for your school to achieve the 50-50 ratio. How are we to believe that you can do the impossible or the next to impossible?
Well, of course, none of us can tell the future. One of the ways that we have garnered into our database of parents right now, a 48-52 balance, and this is without a school.
You have that now.
We have it now.
Okay.
If we
Thank you.
open tomorrow, if all of those parents applied, we would have that in our 7th and 8th grade.
Okay.
That's what we're going by.
Thank you. The last three speakers, Lexi Leger, Alan Holmes, and Ken Bordelon.
Good morning, Mr. Superintendent, board members. My name is Alan Holmes, and it's been a long day yesterday and another long day today. One of the things I noticed upon the plaque of the committee hearing, it said Innovation Crossroad Committee. 5 years ago, I would have came to this meeting and said, I'm against charter schools. I don't believe charter schools. But then I started going into the charter schools, started to going into the public schools, as I said yesterday, sir. I'd make 30 visits a year into public schools, also into the charter schools, the same amount of visits per year, 2 to 3. One of the things I've learned is that Louisiana is famous for two things, Bourbon Street and politics. Politics plays a very outstanding role. Listen, when I filed that lawsuit myself, Attorney Louis Berry, Dean of the Law School at Southern University, in 1986, in 3 to 4 years, that lawsuit could have been settled and the bygones to unitary status. Local school boards and the one in which parish which I live spent with Hammond and Hammond. They spent with experts from around the state and out of the state to circumvent the unitary status, circumvent the DSEG. And when the judge looked at the lawsuit, he agreed. Now, I want to commend Ms. Roma and the progress and the steps in which should be taken. The Red River Charter, during the unitary status standard, would be under the same as the public school. Now, what changed my mind? You know, we all come to a point in life when we change our mind on things through education or through witness. Fall Parish is a beautiful little parish. It has beautiful people, and then it has politics. I sit here today to tell you, members of this board, I stand with this Red River Charter group. They are one Class A charter, and then that's the next one, which is under the guidance of the Fall Parish school system. When they met with the charter people. They met not in good favor. They put forward all type of roadblocks. That gave me concern because it placed me back to 1986 when we filed the original lawsuit. They did what they did with Charlie Brown and the Peanut Gang. They kept on moving the football. Sir, a majority, maybe a minor group of this board, they will tell you that they send their kids to where they can get the best education. And some of them send their kids into the parochial school, and some of them send their kids into the charter school, the class 1A. Now, how can I come before you and say that, oh, it's about the DSEG order, oh, it's about this and it's about that? No, it's about politics and money. That's what it's about. But the most important thing, when the Red River Charter people, it was about the kids. That federal judge in Alexandria would tell us each and every time, from 2008 to 2015, it's about the kids. It's about the kids. It's not about you. It's not about your politics. It's about the kids. So, sir, I sit here today and ask that you give them the opportunity. They will have to go before the federal court. The school board will be there, I'll be there, and the federal government will be there. And there will be scrutiny upon them. If there's any question, I'd be pleased to answer it.
Any questions from the board members? Ms. Boche.
I guess I have a question. It may not be, you may not be able to answer, and maybe no one else here, but the current Type 2 charter that's in Avoyelles, was that school, who does have a state charter, in the discussion in this whole DSEG issue? Because prior to the board achieving unitary status, they were still under the DSEG order. That particular charter school does have a state charter. It is nowhere near, reflective of the ratios of the community. So I guess, and I don't know if anybody can answer that or how germane it is to this particular issue, but is that school under discussion within the whole context of what is happening in Avoyelles? So will any judgments that come down, since it is a public school with a state charter, will it be embraced within this decision to achieve the racial balance in the community, or is it totally outside of this discussion?
If I may answer, and not with a complete of what the federal court would do. In 2010, that charter school was called before federal judge D. Drill, and the discussion of where they were and what was their population. K to 8 is 38% minority. The 8 to 12, it's at 30%. Now, that school still has a coverage because it was approved by the federal court, Judge F.A. Little, Pappy Little, in 1998. And so it was a creation that came through the court system. So anytime you come through the federal court system, and I don't know if Ms. Romo would agree, but the federal court will always have a willingness to go back and discuss with them.
But that's not under present discussion within the context of this whole issue. They're not being brought into it.
I would have no idea. Now, the parties can recommend and ask the court that they be brought back in. The federal government can, and as the lead intervener, I could also ask the court, and also the Vaughan Parish School Board. They could ask the court. It would be up to the court to either accept or deny that. But if there's any violation, if the courts feel that there's violations, then the court has the option to do that. But as I said yesterday, federal courts, we don't never need to suspect or act or even think what they would do and what they may do.
Okay, any other questions from BESE members? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Do we have any discussion amongst BESE members on this item? Ms. Edmiston?
Yes, I'd like to circle back and ask Superintendent White to please state again for me your recommendation and the basis of it, please.
My recommendation was to deny with a request that applications be submitted in further cycles. My view is that this application is too good for children to not be approved at some point. But I also think that we build schools for 100 years, not for 1 year. And to the extent that this issue can be worked out at a local level, I'd like to allow the time to do that. That was the basis of my recommendation. I should say that, and I know things get heated in public environments. This last couple of days, it's a very difficult issue. And we don't live in the community, so we can only imagine how hard it is in the community. I will say that the debate over the last couple of days has not been entirely encouraging about the ability to get it done. I mean, when Ms. Lewis and I were engaged in the discussion early, there was a spirit of cooperation. Jada, I'm talking about 8 weeks ago. This is a very different tone. And, I guess my sense is that if it really proves that ultimately this can't be resolved at a local level, which I think will be more conducive to ensconcing it in an environment where there is stability, then we're going to have to make a decision at some point. And let me give you an example of what I mean. Were this school authorized by the local school board has the ability to put in place enrollment policies that allow for things like racial balance. That's a much harder thing for it to be contained at a state level. So, that's my hope. Maybe it's naive given the dialogue we've heard over the last couple of weeks, but that's the basis for the recommendation.
Thank you. And we're attempting to do that in several different districts in the state, which I think we all agree that at the local level, our children are best served. Rather than us who sit here, I'm sorry, just one more second, us who sit here and try to figure out what's going on in the community with people saying one thing and another group saying that's not true, it's very, very difficult. And so that's why, for myself, I believe that the local level is where we ought to look at educating our children. That's not to say public school is better than charter schools, but I believe that local people in local communities should be the ones who make that decision, as opposed to us who are not in the community. We have our BESE member who has been in the community, has been working very hard, and that's really all we have. That's only a snapshot of what goes on, really in everyday life in the community. So I know that you all have said you realize how difficult this job is, and we want you to know I commend you, Red River. You have done an amazing job of working and trying to build what is a vision for you. Unfortunately, it's not the same vision as the rest of the parish. We have a public school system. I don't have to rehash all that, but I do appreciate and recognize what you've done for the community.
Okay. Any other comments? Hearing none, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have any objection to the motion? Let's do a roll call vote, please.
Okay, the motion on the floor is by Ms. Bophy, seconded by Mr. Davis, to approve the recommendation of the committee. Dr. Bophy?
Yes.
Dr. Bophy votes yes. Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Davis votes yes. Ms. Edmonston?
Can you restate the motion? I'm sorry.
It's to approve it as it was recorded in committee, so to approve Red River Charter Academy with the contingencies listed yesterday in your committee minutes.
No.
Okay, Ms. Edmonston votes no. Ms. Holloway?
Yes.
Ms. Holloway votes yes. Dr. Jones?
I
you had-
recuse.
Okay, recuse. Dr. Jones is recused, so he will not be recorded in the roll call vote. Ms. Lewis?
No.
Ms. Lewis votes no. Ms. Orange Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Orange Jones votes yes. Mr. Rock?
No.
Mr. Rock votes no. Dr. Thomason?
No.
Dr. Thomason votes no. Ms. Vautier?
No.
Ms. Vautier votes no. And Mr. Garvey?
Yes.
Mr. Garvey votes yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a tie vote, so there's no action on this item at this point.
Okay. Let's move on to the next item then.
That concludes your agenda.